Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Buzz podcast. Thanks for joining us today on what is our last episode of season 2 for the Catholic Buzz. So my name is Father Daniele, and I'm joined, as always, by the real stars of the Catholic Buzz podcast. That's Josh Sullivan over here.
Hello.
Josh, welcome. Our last episode. Please don't cry.
Last episode of this year.
Of this season. This season.
Yeah.
And the real star, let's be honest.
Of course.
The amount of mail we get is not for you or me.
No.
It's for Matt Van Milligan over here. Matt,
Hello.
the real star of the Catholic Buzz. Matt, we're already finished season 2. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
We've done 28 episodes this season, and we've done 87 episodes in total of the Catholic Buzz.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of talking that we've done.
A lot of talking that people listen to us.
I know. It's really...
and from all over the world. Australia, Texas, Ireland. We had some downloads in Ireland.
I know. So hello to our friends outside of Canada. Because,
for sure.
You know, like
Thank you for your support.
Yeah, thank you. Seriously. And thanks to our local Canadians, our local parishioners, our local Northern Ontarians, you know, and it's been a good season. So today's our season finale. Of course, we're going to be back for season 3 in the fall. We're just going to take a wee bit of a summer break so Matt can retreat and read.
He needs new material for next season.
We should send cameras to follow Matt around this summer just to see what he gets up to.
Attempting to read while children climb over.
I know.
That's
I know.
summer.
So Matt, I know you shared with us a few days ago that when Teresa Marie was here, we shared that you guys are expecting child number 5.
Yeah.
And you found out that it's going to be a girl.
Yeah.
The first girl.
Changed
4 boys.
Eh?
4 boys and now a girl.
It's going to be a whole new world.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Exciting.
She's going to be daddy's little girl, eh? Okay, so we've had 28 episodes this season. My question to you is, which episode this season was your favorite? And I'm going to refresh your memory here just a little bit. We're going to send a little list of episodes we've done. Like we're going to post
to our social media.
Our social media and our new website.
So the people that are looking at for topics too, that like, I want to know what they say about this or that or the other thing, or not what they say, what the church says about this. Hopefully,
exactly.
Then they can look it up.
So, what was your favorite episode of season 2?
Oh, that's hard to say.
We had some good ones.
We had some really good ones.
I did enjoy the pet one.
Our pet owner's selfish.
Our
pet owner's selfish. That was a good episode. And if people don't know what we're talking about, it's episode 8 of season 2, and it was a response to Pope Francis. Said that. Media headlines were saying that Pope Francis was slamming pet owners for being selfish because they were choosing pets other than children. Yeah.
I think for me, it's all the sex ones. I think that was a big topic that we've been talking about since day one. I think we talked, we got to talk about sex, but it's such a wide topic, and it's something that the Catholic Church, as much as we talked about it, it filled up 4 episodes easily. The Catholics around us, we don't talk about it or not as open about it as we should be, maybe, or it's something that gets left behind in religion classes or left behind in our marriage prep courses, not the new marriage prep courses, but maybe like when I went through, it was kind of something that was a little bit not discussed.
Yeah, we've had people come up to us since and say when we were getting married, people never talked about this, so that's great that we're having an open discussion.
4 whole episodes.
4 whole episodes. That was episode 24, 25, 26, and 27 for those who are just catching up on our episodes. Yeah, you're right. The amount of people who said thanks for those conversations because, a
lot of those.
And also the people who have said, like, I don't know who to talk to about those things, so thanks for talking about them, right? Yeah. And it was a joy. We had 2 special guests this season on our podcast. So Teresa Marie, Matt's wife, was our most recent guest during the Sex Month. I keep calling it Sex Month of episodes, 4 episodes. And, of course, Bishop Thomas Dowd. Remember, he was... with us early in the season. He was our first guest ever, so he was with us talking about all sorts of different things that day that we had him as our special guest. I think that was episode 3 of our season 2.
Yeah, that makes sense.
My favorite episode of season 2, we had some good ones, but if I had to pick one, I'm going to have to go with episode 14.
Okay.
We did an episode called "Are Non-Practicing Catholics Really Catholic?" And that garnered some attention.
Yeah.
From mind you, I've listened to that episode a couple times since, and you guys brought up some really good points when we were talking about that topic. But that has drawn so much reaction, positively and negatively. Yeah, that episode.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like it started a good discussion.
It started a good discussion, and that's what we try to do on the Catholic Buzz. So
get people talking.
Yeah. So with that season 2, we're always saying we have these episodes that we like, and we did all these episodes 28 we said, but there's some things that fall through the crack during a season of our tapings, right?
That's right.
Like here we are having conversations. Matt's having another child.
We have a couple different things.
And we have a couple things that fell through the cracks. So people who email us questions, people who email us comments, thank you very much for emailing us your comments and your feedback and your questions. But we went through all of our social media messages, our email accounts, all these things. And we noticed that there were a few questions that remain unanswered.
Yeah,
right?
We're gonna wrap those
at the
up.
end of our season. So Josh has them.
Yeah.
And now on our final episode, we're just going to wrap. We're going to answer these questions, and then we're going to talk about what is coming up in the Catholic world this coming summer.
Perfect. Okay, we're gonna read these out, and we don't have timer. Do we have timers? No, we're not gonna have timer. We're just gonna answer them real quick.
Yeah.
So these are simple, easy answers. There's a lot more to some of these, but you're gonna have to look those up in the Catechism, or maybe we'll talk about them in another episode. Why do people obey the Pope? They don't always.
They don't.
I think okay. So the Pope has the authority in his role as Pope. He has certain authority over the Catholic Church, over bishops, over cardinals, over the priests, over the laity, and things that he can ask. But again, just because he says things doesn't mean that they are written in stone. He's not infallible, except for we talked about when he becomes infallible in a very specific ceremony ritual. Right?
Yeah, maybe reframing the question that why should people at least listen to the Pope? That canonically, the Pope is the highest moral teaching authority within the Church, and even teachings that are issued by other faculties within the Church do need, the Pope's seal of approval. So having that office, he deserves some.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say, I think we mentioned it in another episode, but there's this, thought out there that we believe that the Pope is infallible at all times, right? And that's just not the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the news tries to make big news about, the cardinal said this against Pope Francis saying that. And, no, they are allowed to disagree on their understanding of specific teachings and stuff. But when it comes to actually, we have a process of what the Church teaches, when it teaches.
Exactly.
Okay. What is the importance of a deacon? This is not a one-word answer, but helping with the ministries of charity, service, in the Church.
Yeah, so remember from the scriptures, they picked men of good repute.
Yep.
I think is the exact wording. Men of good repute to be assistants to the bishops, right? And I think that's where the ministry of deacons, the heart of the ministry of deacon is. Like our deacons provide such great ministry. And you look at the life of so there's two types of deacons, just to clarify. Yeah. I was ordained a deacon before I was ordained a priest. There's two types of deacons. There's transitional deacon, which means that you're ordained a deacon before you're ordained a priest. So transitional as mean, you're transitioning to the priesthood. And then there's permanent deacons. Permanent deacons, that's their call. That's their vocation. And permanent deacons are married if they are married before they become a deacon. And their ministry is to serve. You see, people mostly see deacons liturgically, like they picked men of good repute to serve at the tables. That's what the scriptures say. And so you mostly see deacons. So they're beside the priest at the altar. Mass. They're preaching the word of God.
That's right, yeah.
They give homilies. They're also allowed to baptize. They lead funerals. If there's no mass, they can bury the dead. So there's a lot of stuff that deacons can do liturgically, but I think the beautiful thing of being a deacon And I had a short time as a deacon. Well, I guess, I was ordained a deacon. I'm always a deacon. That's where our service comes from, at the heart of our service comes from. But the beautiful thing about deacons is most deacons have a ministry outside of the parish that they are involved in, whether that's outreach to those who are homebound, bringing the Eucharist to people, working with the poor, other charitable stuff, being Catholic liaisons to certain boards and certain things. And so deacons are out there doing some really amazing things, right? So I know people in the pews just see them liturgically, but it's really it's a ministry of service. It's really a heart of service.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about sex to consummate marriage, how sex is one of those things that are required to consummate a marriage. Is Mary and Joseph's marriage valid if she is a perpetual virgin?
I would say yes, but I think that's not very satisfactory. But no.
Matt said yes.
We're good.
Yeah. No, but the sacrament of marriage, as we understand it now, that the church kind of defines and administers the sacraments, and the church, wasn't formally established at that point. Yeah. So Mary and Joseph's wedding would have been conducted under kind of the Jewish ritual. But even that's like that. Yeah. That's kind of a post-rationalization of why it would be valid without necessarily having that component, and necessarily not having that component because of Marian dogmas. But also, Mary and Joseph's marriage is kind of a singularity in human history. That is not we can't just kind of say, it's kind of above reproach. It's above question because it's a uniquely formed relationship for a very specific purpose.
When you are the mother or stepfather of God, then you can
certain
set your own rules.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and they gave their full consent. I mean, this is unique, right? To raise the child Jesus. And remember the Gospel of Matthew, actually, in chapter 1, does say that Joseph is the husband of Mary, right? So. And even, every Mass in the Eucharistic prayer, the Blessed Virgin Mary and Blessed Joseph, her spouse, right? So that means that the marriage is valid, it's recognized, right? So,
okay, this one's a bit of a confusing one, but are you saved in the modern day? I think I'm going to understand that question to mean Jesus died for the people on earth at that time. 2,000 years later, are you still saved by Jesus's sacrifice? And yes, you can be if you accept his salvation, right? If you are the one willing to accept it and ask God for his salvation.
Yeah, and I see that as like we all have an ongoing need for being
every
saved,
day.
An ongoing need for what we call conversion, right? Conversion of heart. So
as Catholics, we don't believe in like the one saved date, as some other Christian denominations might say. Oh, I was saved on this date. Yeah. That's not what we believe as Catholics. As Catholics, every day is a choice. Every day is
absolutely.
Every action is a choice.
That's right.
And so you are saved on a regular basis, and you have to recommit on a regular basis.
That's what the beautiful sacraments are for.
Yeah. Okay, how do Catholics see and respond to suicide? That's a really deep one. We talked a little bit about this on other episodes. I know that we did. But we know now a lot more than what maybe the church taught, I'm going to say, 50 years ago. And some of that was, now we know it's a mental illness. Now we know that there's there's a lot of other things that are happening when suicide is involved. And so when it comes to that, I mean, I think it's
and the real tragedy of suicide. Well, the tragedy of suicide is that someone takes their life, but the really hard part about that, from a kind of Catholic theological perspective, is that it's a mortal sin that you can't atone for.
Yes,
you don't have the opportunity to confess.
Yeah,
that we believe that human life is
the gift. Yeah,
that for the same reason you can't murder, you can't take human life.
Yeah,
that applies to yourself as well.
Yeah.
That's right. But you're right that we understand today that there are people still who remember the days when someone committed suicide. They weren't permitted a Catholic funeral. They weren't permitted to be buried in a Catholic cemetery.
Thinking,
right. Those now we understand a lot more that people in their right frame of mind aren't taking their own life, right? And there's something going on in their heart that's really burdensome, that's, and we recognize that as they weren't in a clear state of mind when they made that decision. So
now it's on the same topic, but a little bit different. Euthanasia and accepting and signing over your life and all that. That's a little bit story. That's a different story, right? Because as long as you are of sound mind and all that, like that's not accepted by the Catholic Church. And you are, like if someone commits suicide, you can still pray for that person. We don't know what the final judgment is. I mean, we have an idea, we have that, but the people here on earth aren't the final judge. That's God and God alone. And understanding if there's a mental illness and there's a chemical imbalance with the chemicals going on in the brain, if that's the case, God's the one that sets the judgment. God is the judge. For us on earth here, we know that it's wrong, and so we encourage people not to do it.
Of course.
Right? But okay.
Yeah, and there it lies maybe the I don't know, the sad part of the topic of suicide, because we put so much effort and attention into preventing young people from taking their life. And yet at the same time, at least here in our country, we are almost suggesting it to the elderly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's the sad reality.
And we're fighting for it before they're even out of the womb.
I know.
Like we're like the culture of death that we have ourselves in, and then we're surprised when someone commits suicide. I mean, it's just, it's unfortunate. There's other things at play here. Okay. That's a downer. I'm sorry. But we'll leave on a better note. On the last question I have here. What are some of your recommended books to read this summer? So that's kind of a nice one.
Yeah. I will turn to Matt because you're like a walking library. Having Matt beside you is like having like the internet beside you. Like in your pocket. Yes.
What
would you suggest?
Take that as an insult because I don't like the internet. No, I'm just kidding. No.
The smell of the pages and stuff. You're losing a lot of the experience.
Okay, so for like, it's not strictly catechetical reading, but for like spiritual growth reading, something I've really enjoyed this past year is a book by, his name's Jack Mulder, and it's just called What It Means to Be Catholic. And it's just kind of a really honest, he's a post-product, maybe I just like it because it resonates with my experience, but he's a convert to Catholicism from Protestant. So he really kind of bridges his understanding of how his faith was formed in a Protestant context and really how he kind of made that step to become Catholic. But for, I would say, like edifying fiction, my recommendation always is Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh. It's a fantastic book. And just for like fun reading, I would say probably something like The Walking Drum by Louis L'Amour.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good list.
Yeah, right there, though, you can see. When you said what book to read, I was just thinking of one book. I wasn't thinking of the different categories of reading. Myself.
Yeah.
But you're not a walking library.
I'm not a walking library. That's why.
And for poetry, I would recommend
but I listen to my audiobooks most of the time. So as you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's what I would listen to. Oh, that's a good, yeah.
And contemporary philosophy, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Father?
Well, I would recommend the book I'm currently reading, which is very edifying for me, and it's called Reclaiming Vatican II, and it's by Father Blake Britton, and Father Blake does such a good job talking about how we have to reclaim Vatican II, because he's talking about this beautiful reality, which is we got lost somewhere in between the shuffle of what Vatican II was, implementing Vatican II, and currently trying to live out Vatican II. Right?
Yeah.
And that at first there were so many people just eager for change that things weren't implemented correctly, right? And it shows too why there's a bit of division in the church in like people who want the traditions of pre-Vatican II and people who are like hardcore pushing for change, very progressive change or whatever it might be, because of their understanding of how Vatican II, what they think Vatican II was. You know, what happened, there was the big during Vatican II, there was a big sort of media leaking. That's kind of popular today. Media leaks documents the night before an announcement or whatever it might be. And so as things were being leaked, like the documents of Vatican II hadn't even been really read or promulgated or written, not read, and promulgated. And so there's this. Anyways, it's amazing. If you like that sort of stuff, Father Blake, Britain, Reclaiming Vatican II.
That's good. Okay,
and for nonfiction, I'm just kidding. I'm a one book at a time.
Okay, for me it would be Peter Kraft.
Kraft, I think.
Kraft. Oh, there you go. See, there we go. Yes and no. And basically, it goes through the discussions of why, like, is there a God, is there not a God? It's a two-person dialogue throughout, basically an atheist and a Christian, basically talking about whether there's a God or not. And kind of through the discussion of these two people, the Christian brings forward solid arguments. The atheist tries to show where there are things that are wrong there. But Peter Kraft is a good Catholic author. A lot of great books by him. I'd recommend pretty much anything by him. But that one specifically for if you want to start to know how to defend your faith, the topic with how to defend that there is a God and prove that there's a God and that Jesus is God, and then like slows in. And so yes and no by Peter Kraft.
So add those to your reading list if people are looking for something to read this summer. Okay. So we got about 10 minutes left in our episode, our final episode of season 2. And we're going to look forward now to the summer. There's lots of things going. So let's try. I know it's very hard for us, but let's try and be a little quick. So number one, right is obvious, is Pope Francis will be visiting Canada between July 26th and July 24th and July 29th. So he'll be visiting Canada. So
am I right in saying that he's stopping in 3 places?
That's right.
Yeah.
So he's going to Edmonton, Quebec City, and then Iqaluit.
Yes.
In Nunavut. So those are the 3 places he's going. Since they announced that he's going to those cities, there's been criticism about where he's going. But I think... it's never going to be perfect, right?
No.
Whether the Pope was here for a month and toured Canada, there would still be people upset. He's chosen, the Vatican or him or, some of the people on the ground here have chosen these 3 sites. They each have significance of why he's visiting those places. And we have to take in mind here, I know people have mentioned this, but it's not an excuse. It's a reality. Pope Francis his mobility is limited right now.
Yeah.
He's already canceled trips to like Lebanon he was supposed to go to. He's still pushing to come to Canada. So God bless him.
Yeah. I think the fact that he's still pushing it, that it's still there. And he has a very specific purpose. Like
absolutely.
He did apologize at the Vatican. They wanted him to come to Canada to apologize. And he like the stories that he heard and the stuff that he listened to, like changed his heart that he made this happen. You know what I mean? And so he wanted to do everything he could to kind of put this chapter of this event, kind of so that we can move forward towards the reconciliation. So if this is what needs to happen, he's willing to make it happen as much as he possibly can. We know right now, he was walking at Easter, I think, but now he's in like with a cane and a limp and everything else, but now he's into a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And so like his health is declining to fast, I'm going to say, not necessarily too fast, hopefully, but
he's got knee troubles.
Yeah, and walking around, and his brain's still there, but his
he's
physical
having trouble,
body.
And he doesn't want to go. I believe what I read was he doesn't want to undergo surgery because I think there were complications last summer when he had some of his intestine removed when he was under sedation, or
So I remember hearing about that.
There, so I think he's trying to avoid surgery. But
so he's still coming here for like a week.
He's coming here. He's coming here for and he'll be visiting those 3 places. So we're gonna pray for him. And like you said, usually when a pope comes to a country or visits somewhere, there's a lot of fanfare, there's excitement, and all that stuff. That's not the case. The visit this year, the focus is a little bit toned down because of the purpose of that visit.
Yeah, and it speaks to his decision and his determination to come. That like he's. The Pope's schedule is more than months planned out ahead.
Exactly.
Like he's actually canceled engagements to come here.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and so he'll be here on on the mission of contributing to the reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples. So that's the focus of this trip, and not the usual fanfare. The last Pope to visit Canada was
JP2,
John Paul II.
Yeah,
in
Toronto,
2002.
And the Pope just announced a bunch of new cardinals.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he's gonna create the cardinals on August 27th, I believe, right? And so that's kind of, if you're listening to the news, the popular thing to do is to treat these guys like politicians, because who's going to be the next Pope? So are they liberal? Are they conservative in their beliefs, more traditional, or are they more pushing an agenda of some sorts? But you have to realize, like, the reason for cardinals is to elect the new Pope. And some of these cardinals are over the age of voting, and so they're going to be 80 or older at the time that they are created as cardinals. And so it's more of an honorary title at that point.
Sure, because you can't vote in the conclave at the age of 80 right? And forward. Yeah. So by the time this August consistory, he's going to create these new cardinals, and then they're calling the world's cardinals to the Vatican like the day after for these meetings, right? And by that time, after those new cardinals are made, there's going to be 132 cardinal electors. So that's what they can vote in the conclave. 62% of that number would have been created by Pope Francis. Like, those cardinals have been made by Pope Francis. So that's a pretty big number.
And people say that, okay, well, he's stacking the deck, or he's trying to push an agenda or something like that. Again, that's political talk. You have to realize if these cardinals are of a specific age of sorts, right? And so he's been Pope now for 10 years. Of course, he's going to have created like a large percentage of these cardinals, right, as going on. But even Pope Benedict, during his time, the amount of cardinals that he created at a time, or even JP2, the amount of cardinals, those are the cardinals are going to far outweigh a lot of times, especially John Paul II. I can imagine that most cardinals at that time probably he created in his 20-some years.
In his 27 years of pontificate. Yeah.
So it's not political by any means necessarily. This is specifically creating these positions, and they do help mold the church in some ways, like in electing a new pope and that stuff. But again, we believe that the church itself is directed by the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And so if if it comes a time where we have a conclave, and then we believe we all pray, like the whole church is praying at that time, that the right person is chosen, that the right things are done. So,
and on that note, I was thinking about gathering at the Vatican. What else is happening in the Vatican right now is this ongoing synod on synodality. Remember we talked about it when Pope. I was going to say Pope Thomas Dowd. No, Bishop Thomas Dowd was on our. Oh, I hope he doesn't mind. I don't think he'll mind if I call him the Pope. Yeah, Bishop Thomas Dowd was on our thing. I don't think we've talked about the synod since then. But,
no, not really.
So
no.
In our own diocese, the synod process has happened. So people have collected information. The diocese has asked questions. They've compiled information. The diocese is sending that on to the Canadian bishops. The Canadian bishops have to make a report for the Vatican, right? Yeah. And so this ongoing, synod is kind of what Pope Francis's mandate has been, sort of curial reform and all those things. Now, the process of synod, it's not perfect. I've read a copy of some of the comments from our own diocese, and sure, it's an opportunity for everyone to sort of weigh in.
Yeah.
And from what I read, it was kind of showed where people's hearts were. You had responses from religious groups and parishes that are really trying to focus and be faithful to the church and God. And you saw the fruit of that. You saw like the things they're doing and all that stuff. And then it's also an opportunity for people who just want change and change that I would classify as being of this world and not of God.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like people changing for things, like people asking for change, like ordaining women and stuff, like things that are clearly against the
We've talked
teaching.
about that there's dogma and doctrine, and those things don't change. Our understanding in doctrine can, but our dogmas don't. And so there's not going to be a drastic, like the synod on synodality is not going to be like, okay, now we've decided that Jesus was now a woman, or like whatever the case may be. Like, it's not going to be something drastic
or
that changes.
We're not going to refer to the Father as the Father.
Exactly.
You know,
like these are things that aren't the dogmas are the dogmas.
Yeah. And something that can be said for the synodal process is that it's due process. Like even though these are kind of preliminary, like people are able to voice their perspectives.
Absolutely.
That these are being aggregated by the bishops, they're being vetted by the conferences, and then finally being brought to the Vatican. So, by that time I
think it's a really good thing, like, so the Vatican, that like, as they're looking at it, that they're hearing the voice of the people and where they're at. Because also, that can also help change, like, when I want to know where my kids are at, if I'm thinking of it that way, when I want to know where my kids, I have to have a good, deep conversation with them. And when we're asking the right questions, and at that time, I tell them, like, when we have a serious conversation, you can say whatever you want. So, like, if you're having a hard time with me, I want you to tell me to my face right now what I'm doing wrong and everything else.
Right now?
Well, yeah, not right now. Not you guys. But no, but you know what I mean? Like, I say, like, no, like, you can say whatever you want right now. Yeah. You're not going to be punished. You're not going to be judged. You're not going to be. Right now is an open conversation. I want to know where you're at, and then I can see where my kids' hearts are at, and where maybe they need help, maybe where they need guidance, maybe where they need, or sometimes they come up with really good ideas that I am able then to. Oh, you know what? You're right. I am being unfair when it comes to this. We can look at this a little bit differently. We can look at how can we change, how can we move forward, and boom. It doesn't mean that I'm going to, like, they really think that they need to eat a lot more chocolate and candy. Well, that's not going to be helpful for them, and I know that, so that's not going to change. But if all of a sudden my son that's in high school is saying, I think I need a later bedtime, and I look at what he's doing during the day, and I'm like, you know what? Oh, yeah, you're right. That does work. I think, you know what? Like right now, you come home and you work homework until you go to bed. That's not fun. Let's look at pushing the bedtime back a little bit.
Yeah, I think the process, you're right, is a
there's
duper.
No harm in hearing people out.
Absolutely. Yeah. People have their their proper place to share that, right? And I think you're right. It is a tool to see where are people's hearts at, and maybe we can address those things, right, to help people sort of come to a deeper understanding about the whys or the hows or where we should be moving together, moving together as a church, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are sort of the happenings going on there.
Yeah.
And any final thoughts before we wrap up season 2?
Well, for people that wanted to know what else to do this summer, we have a beautiful Catholic retreat coming up. Yeah. And so you can see the Holy Name St. Alphonsus website for that one.
And it's funny. We were talking about like our season. We were talking about people talking to us about like the sex episodes we were doing. And because the three of us led a Pentecost retreat a couple weeks ago, right? And we were speakers at this Pentecost retreat. And it was
Thank you for all those who came.
Yeah, exactly. It was just funny because people were like, wow, hearing us talk again. And then again, all three of us are speaking at that Catholic family retreat this summer in July, at the end of July. So
bring your family along. It's all about relationships with yourself, relationship with your spouse.
Fostering authentic relationships, right?
Spouse, and
kids,
your children, and then God.
Yeah, exactly.
So
we'll be keeping busy this summer with ministry, but
we'll be back in September sometime.
We'll be back in the fall with a new season, and if things happen, we might have a special episode this summer where we'll see what we can.
What kind of buzz comes up during the summer that we need to talk about?
Exactly. So. As we wrap up season 2, we have to acknowledge that it's not just the three of us that put this podcast together. Of course, behind the scenes, we got Dave, Sam, Kevin, and Ben that are always working hard to make this podcast happen. Mm-hmm. And they put up with a lot, they really put up with a lot. They wait around for us all the time. And,
as we're talking about books and what we did on the weekend.
So thank you to them. Also, we have a new website for the Catholic Buzz podcast.
Again, thank you to those who made that.
Exactly. And it's very simple. It's thecatholicbuzz.com.
Yeah.
Thecatholicbuzz.com. So we're going to be posting a catalog of all our past episodes that's easy to find for people to go back and see some of the episodes we talked about today, or back up to season 1. I listened to some of our first episodes of season 1 the other day. Yeah. Whew.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way.
Our technology too, even just in the technology itself has come up so much, but also how we've done this. Yeah.
God bless people who watched us at the beginning. So yes, thank you to our crew for always, helping us out during this podcast and making things go smoothly. Thank you to you two for being my colleagues here and having good conversation. Yeah. So thecatholicbuzz.com is our new website. You can also leave comments on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube pages, all those things. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. And that's a wrap for season 2. For Josh Sullivan and Matt Van Milligan and me, Father Daniele, we want to thank you who have been watching, who have been listening for 2 seasons. Thank you all, and God bless you. We'll see you for season 3.